You are not overwhelmed. You are not broken. And you are definitely not living some complicated, tragic life story. You are addicted to your own narrative. Every small inconvenience turns into something bigger than it is. A delayed message becomes rejection. A small mistake becomes failure. A quiet moment becomes anxiety. Not because reality is harsh, but because your mind keeps rewriting it. Your brain is not just thinking. It is performing. It takes a simple moment and turns it into a story. A story where you are either the victim or the misunderstood hero. And the most dangerous part? You believe it. You don't question it. You don't pause it. You don't even notice it. You just react again and again and again, as if the story is real. This is where your power leaks. Not in the world, not in other people, but in the way you interpret what happens. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He didn't try to control life. He controlled how life was seen. He stripped events down to their raw form. No emotion, no drama, no personal meaning, just reality. Because once the story disappears, there is nothing left to react to, only something to act on. So here is the question. What if your suffering is not coming from life, but from the story you keep telling yourself about it? And what if, the moment you stop narrating, you become dangerous? Stay with me. Because once you see this clearly, you won't be able to go back. Your mind never stops talking. Not for a second. From the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, there is always a voice. Commenting, judging, explaining everything. But here's the problem. That voice is not neutral. It is biased. It edits reality in real time. You wake up late, and the voice says, "You're losing control of your life." Someone doesn't reply, and the voice says, "They don't respect you." You make a small mistake, and the voice says, "You're falling behind." But none of these are facts. They are interpretations. Your mind is not observing reality. It is rewriting it, like a scriptwriter, desperate to turn every moment into something dramatic. Because drama feels important, and feeling important feels addictive. This is why you feel tired, even when nothing serious has happened. Because your mind keeps creating mini crises, small situations, blown out of proportion, again and again and again. You are not reacting to life. You are reacting to your commentary about life. And that commentary is loud, relentless, emotional. It hijacks your focus. It raises your stress. And it drains your discipline without you even noticing. This is narrative addiction. You don't just experience life. You narrate it. And then, you suffer from your own narration. Marcus Aurelius saw this clearly thousands of years ago. And his solution was brutal. Simple. Direct. Remove the opinion, and the suffering disappears. Not reduced. Not managed. Removed. Because the pain is not in the event. It is in the story about the event. And once you see this, you realize something uncomfortable. Most of what you call stress is self-created, not by the world, but by your interpretation of it. And that means it can be removed, but only if you're willing to stop believing everything your mind tells you. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to see things as they really are, not as they feel, not as they appear, not as the ego wants them to be, but as they are, in their simplest form. No decoration, no exaggeration, no story. If someone insults you, the raw event is simple. Sound entered your ears. That's it. Everything else, disrespect, attack, humiliation, is added later, added by your mind. And once it is added, it becomes fuel. Fuel for emotion. Fuel for reaction. Fuel for losing control. This is where most men fail. Not at the moment something happens, but at the moment they assign meaning to it. Because meaning is not automatic. It is chosen. Let's slow this down. Something happens. Then your mind labels it. Then your body reacts. But what if you remove the label? Event. She didn't reply. Your mind says, she's ignoring me. Reality says, you don't know. Event. You failed. Your mind says, I'm not good enough. Reality says, an outcome occurred. Event. They criticized you. Your mind says, they don't respect me. Reality says, words were spoken. The difference is everything. Because once you remove the story, there is no emotional explosion, no spiral, no overthinking, just a neutral situation, waiting for a clean response. This is the Stoic principle. Separate the event from the interpretation, because the interpretation is optional. And the moment you realize that, you stop being controlled by your own mind. You don't need to suppress emotion. You don't need to fight your thoughts. You simply stop feeding them with false meaning. And in that silence, you gain something rare. Clarity, precision, control. Most men chase strength through action. But real strength begins here, in perception, in how you see what happens to you. Because if you can see clearly, you can act correctly. And if you can act correctly, nothing can shake you. The moment that defines you is not the event. It is what happens right after it. There is a space, a very small one. So small, most men never notice it. Between what happens and what you say it means. That space is where your power lives. But for most people, that space does not exist. Because the reaction is instant, automatic, unconscious. Something happens, and the label appears immediately. Then the emotion, then the reaction, all in less than a second. No awareness, no control, just a loop, running itself. This is why you feel controlled by everything around you, because you never interrupt the process. The Stoic does something different. He trains the space. He slows it down. He refuses to rush into meaning. Instead of reacting, he observes. Instead of labeling, he waits. Instead of speaking, he stays still. This is the discipline of the pause. And it sounds simple, until you try to do it. Because your mind will push you. It will demand an answer. It will try to force a reaction. But this is the test. You feel something rise, anger, frustration, insecurity, but you don't move. You don't speak. You don't label it. You just watch it. Like a scientist. No judgment. No story. Just raw observation. And something interesting happens. The intensity drops. Not because the situation changed, but because you didn't feed it. This is where control begins. Not in what you do, but in what you don't do. Most men think power is action. Saying something, proving something, responding fast. But real power is restraint. It is the ability to not react when everything inside you wants to. Because once you react, you are predictable. And once you are predictable, you can be controlled. But when you pause, everything changes. The chain is broken. Stimulus no longer leads directly to reaction. Now it becomes stimulus, awareness, choice. That middle step changes everything. Because now, you are not controlled by emotion. You are guided by decision. This is why the pause is dangerous. Not loud, not visible, but powerful. Because it gives you time. Time to see clearly. Time to remove the story. Time to choose your response. And in that time, you take your power back. Most people live in reaction. Always responding. Always explaining. Always defending. But the man who pauses moves differently. He doesn't rush. He doesn't chase meaning. He doesn't need to prove anything. He sees. He decides. He acts. Nothing more. Nothing wasted. If you master this, you don't just control your emotions. You control your life. Because every outcome is shaped in that small, invisible space between what happens and what you choose to do next. Now we make this real. Not theory. Not philosophy. Practice. Because if you don't train this, your mind will always go back to creating stories. You need a system. Something simple. Something repeatable. Something you can use in real life. Start with this. Describe reality like a machine. Cold. Neutral. Precise. No emotion. No exaggeration. No story. Instead of saying, "This is a disaster," say, "A delay occurred." Instead of saying, "They disrespected me," say, "A comment was made." Instead of saying, "I'm failing," say, "This attempt did not succeed." It sounds unnatural, almost empty. But that's the point. Because drama needs language. The more emotional your words, the stronger the reaction. The simpler your words, the calmer your mind. You are not just changing how you speak. You are changing how you see. Next step. Pause before labeling. This is critical. When something happens, your mind will rush to define it. Good. Bad. Threat. Problem. But don't let it. Wait. Even 1 second is enough. That pause interrupts the automatic story. It creates space. And in that space, you regain control. You begin to see, instead of react. Third step. Reduce internal dialogue. Your mind talks too much. Too many explanations. Too many assumptions. Too many imagined scenarios. Cut it down. Short statements. Clear observations. Nothing extra. Because every extra word is another layer of fiction. And every layer of fiction pulls you further from reality. Now here's the shift. At first, this feels forced. You have to remind yourself. You have to slow down. You have to correct your own thoughts. But over time, it becomes natural. You stop exaggerating. You stop assuming. You stop reacting to things that don't actually exist. And when that happens, everything becomes lighter. Not because life changed, but because you stop distorting it. This is where most people fail. They try this once. Then they stop. Because it feels boring. Because it feels emotionless. But that boredom is peace. That silence is control. You are not losing something. You are removing noise. And in that silence, you can finally think clearly. You can finally act precisely. You can finally move forward without dragging unnecessary weight. If you're starting to notice how much your mind exaggerates reality, good. That awareness alone puts you ahead of most people. Stay with it, because the next level is where everything changes. Here is the deeper problem. It's not just your thoughts. It's your identity. Because over time, you don't just tell stories. You become them. I'm the one who struggles. I'm the one who is misunderstood. I'm the one who always gets it wrong. These are not observations. They are roles. And once you accept a role, you start living it. You start filtering reality to match the story. If something goes wrong, it confirms the identity. If something goes right, you ignore it because it doesn't fit the script. This is how the trap forms. You are no longer seeing reality. You are protecting a narrative. And that narrative costs you everything. It costs you energy because you have to keep explaining it. It costs you focus because you keep replaying it. And it costs you growth because you act in ways that keep the story alive. This is why many men feel stuck. Not because they lack ability, but because they are loyal to a false identity. The Stoic breaks this completely. No role, no story, no emotional attachment to self-image. Just observation, just action, just reality. Nothing more, nothing extra. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to feel better, but to see clearly. He reminded himself, again and again, that events are neutral, that identity is optional, that perception can be corrected. This is the shift. You are not the character in the story. You are the one observing it. And once you see that, you stop defending the narrative. You stop repeating the past. You stop exaggerating the present. You become lighter, not emotionally weaker, but mentally freer. Because when there is no story to protect, there is nothing to fear losing. And when there is nothing to fear losing, you move differently. You act faster. You think clearer. You hesitate less. This is where real confidence comes from. Not from believing in yourself, but from no longer needing to maintain a version of yourself. Most people are trapped inside the identity they created. The Stoic steps outside of it. And in that space, there is no pressure, no performance, no illusion, only truth. There is something most men don't realize. Your story is not harmless. It has a cost, a real one. Every time you exaggerate a situation, you spend energy, not physical energy, mental energy, the kind that controls your focus, your discipline, your ability to act. You wake up already tired, not because of what happened, but because of what you kept replaying. The conversation, the mistake, the moment that didn't go your way. But notice this. The event is gone. It already passed. What remains is the story. And you keep feeding it, replaying it, expanding it, adding details that were never there. This is how a 10-second moment turns into hours of stress. Not because of reality, but because of narration. Now look at the cost. You lose focus because your mind is somewhere else. You lose time because you're thinking instead of acting. You lose opportunities because you hesitate over things that don't even exist. And over time, you lose confidence, not because you are incapable, but because your mind keeps telling you that everything is bigger than it is. This is why some men feel stuck, not moving forward, not improving, always thinking, but never acting, because they are trapped inside their own narrative loop. Now imagine something different. Same situation, same event, but no story, no exaggeration, no emotional replay. Just, it happened. And then, you move on. No weight, no attachment, no mental drag. That is efficiency. That is clarity. That is power. Because now, your energy is not wasted. It is directed, focused, used where it actually matters. This is what separates disciplined men from reactive ones. Not intelligence, not talent, not even experience, but perception. One man sees a problem and turns it into a story. Another man sees the same problem and treats it like data. Nothing personal, nothing emotional, just information. And because of that, he moves faster. He decides quicker. He recovers instantly. This is the real advantage. Not being stronger, but being lighter. Not carrying unnecessary meaning. Not dragging emotional weight into every situation. Because when your mind is clear, your actions become sharp. And when your actions are sharp, your life moves forward. Most people don't realize this. They think they need more motivation, more discipline, more effort. But what they actually need is less fiction, less noise, less unnecessary interpretation. Remove the story, and you remove the resistance. And when resistance is gone, movement becomes natural. This is what you are building. Not a new personality, not a new mindset, but a new way of seeing. One that doesn't distort reality. One that doesn't exaggerate problems. One that doesn't trap you inside your own head. And once you have that, everything becomes easier. Not because life changed, but because you did. Now bring this into real life. Not theory, not ideas, action. Because if you don't apply this, your mind will go back to creating stories again. Start simple. Something happens, and instead of reacting, you ask one question. What actually happened? Not what it means. Not how it feels. Just what happened. You miss a deadline. What actually happened? The task was not completed on time. Nothing more. No drama. No identity. No story. You feel tension in a conversation. What actually happened? Different opinions were expressed. Not disrespect. Not conflict. Just difference. You feel insecure. What actually happened? A thought appeared. That's it. You see the pattern? You are removing meaning from automatic reaction and replacing it with clear observation. Now here's where it gets powerful. Once you see clearly, your response changes. You stop defending yourself against things that don't exist. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing validation. Because there is no story to protect, only a situation to handle. This saves you time, mental energy, focus, and over time, it builds something deeper. Respect. Not from others first, from yourself. Because you are no longer reacting blindly. You are choosing deliberately. This is rare. Most people don't do this. They react instantly. They speak too much. They explain too much. They feel too much. And they lose control without even noticing. But the man who sees clearly moves differently. He listens more. He reacts less. He speaks with precision. Not to impress. Not to defend. But to act. Apply this at work. Apply this in relationships. Apply this when you are alone with your own thoughts. Especially then. Because that's where the stories are strongest. That's where the narrative tries to rebuild itself. But now, you see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If this is starting to click for you, good. That means you are stepping out of the story and into reality. Stay with it. Because the final piece is where everything locks in. Your mind will not stop telling stories. It will keep going. Again, and again, and again. That's its nature. It wants to explain. It wants to label. It wants to turn everything into something meaningful. But now, you see it. You see how it works. You see how it exaggerates. You see how it creates problems that were never really there. And that changes everything. Because once you see the story, you no longer have to believe it. You no longer have to follow it. You no longer have to become it. You can step back. Just a little. Just enough. To observe. No reaction. No judgment. No rush to define. Just awareness. This is where control begins. Not by forcing silence, but by not feeding the noise. Not by fighting your mind, but by not obeying it. You let the thoughts appear and disappear without turning them into something bigger. And slowly, the volume drops. The urgency fades. The pressure disappears. Not because life became easier, but because you stopped distorting it. This is the shift. From chaos to clarity. From reaction to control. From story to reality. And in that reality, there is nothing overwhelming. Nothing personal. Nothing dramatic. Just situations. Just choices. Just action. Clean. Simple. direct. Most people will never reach this point because they are too attached to their story. They need it. They protect it. They live inside it. But you don't have to. You can step out right now, not by changing your life, but by changing how you see it. And when you see clearly, you move differently. You speak less. You react less. You waste less energy. And what remains is something rare, something most men never develop. Silent control. Not loud, not visible, but absolute. If you want to build this level of discipline, stay consistent. This is not motivation. This is training. And if you're ready to take control of your mind, subscribe, and we'll build it step by step.